In this video segment, we will explore some of the adaptations that allow animals to digest varying diets. We have learned in previous lessons about teeth. The purpose of teeth are to help process food. Mammals have specialized teeth that help them to process and capture prey and to grind up food depending on their diet. We can actually determine the diet of a mammal based on their tooth structure. For example, herbivores tend to have grinding teeth. So this is a great example here in the middle. This is a single tooth from an elephant. And we can see that these top pieces are grooved and rough to help grind up tough plant material. Over here we see a partial skull of a deer, another herbivore. And again, these molars and premolars are all designed for grinding. Okay, other animals are carnivores and they eat meat. So this is a canine here. And this canine has a large canine tooth, okay, and sharper teeth for the premolars and molars. Okay, some animals, such as the cats, actually have molars and premolars that act like scissors that slice through meat. Okay, some teeth are designed for gnawing. This is the skull of a beaver, and these front teeth grow continuously and are designed to help them gnaw through tough bark. Okay, some animals don't actually chew their food. So this orca whale, which is actually a dolphin, but these orcas have peg-like teeth that all look fairly similar, and that's because they use them to grab hold of prey, and they pretty much swallow the whole thing. Not all diets are easy to digest. Many animals have alternate means to processing their food. We're going to look at a few examples in herbivores, and then some other interesting things along the way. The first thing I want to point out is that not all stomachs are alike. The easier the food is to digest, the simpler the stomach. So, echidna and scaly anteaters tend to eat things that are easy to digest. They eat a lot of insects, which are high in protein. Okay. Things that have to ferment their food often have very complex stomachs with weird shapes, like this kangaroo. Okay. So not all stomachs are the same. This is going to be an adaptation that helps them digest and process their food. Likewise, intestines are not all the same length. If the small intestine is very long, it tends to be that of an herbivore. Herbivores need more time to ferment and process and absorb the nutrients from those tough to break down plants. Animals that are carnivores have a high protein diet. Proteins are easy to break down, especially in the stomach, and can be digested rapidly, and those amino acids absorbed quickly through the small intestines. Ruminants are an interesting group of organisms that are highly adapted for processing cellulose. Ruminants include things like buffalo, cows, goats, and deer. These animals have a 4-part stomach. The largest chamber in their stomach is actually a fermentation chamber. Inside of that chamber, there are cellulose digesting bacteria. Okay? Animals in general cannot break down cellulose. Our enzymes are not capable of doing that. We can break down starch and amylose, we can break down glycogen. Cellulose has a different structure, and we can't touch it. So ruminants use this symbiotic mutualistic relationship with these gut microbes to help them get to the energy stored in cellulose. These animals ferment the food, okay, so they swallow that plant material, they let it sit with those cellulose digesting bacteria who do their job and break down cellulose. Okay, and then they will continue the process of digestion, moving those smaller pieces of carbohydrates through the rest of their stomach and into their small intestines for absorption. Okay, again, I mentioned this is a mutualistic relationship. these animals get extra nutrients out of the grasses and plant materials that they eat. Okay? And in exchange, these bacteria have a nice warm place to live with room service. These animals are delivering the food right to them. They don't have to go anywhere and look for it. So this is a win-win for everyone, which allows both of them to get a lot of nutrients out of cellulose found in plants. Another type of fermentation involves the cecum. The cecum is a protrusion of the intestines. It happens right at the junction of the small intestines and the large intestines. In some animals, the cecum is very large. And you can see in this horse that it's actually this huge pouch that takes up most of the horse's side. Okay? In other animals, like humans, our cecum is very small. It's kind of a short pouch with our appendix attached. That's because humans do not use the cecum for fermentation. Okay? So cecum fermentation, again, involves bacteria that help to break down cellulose found in plant materials. So this is a strategy used by herbivores. Okay? Cecum fermentation does allow these animals to get more nutrients out of tough plant material. However, they are not able to get as many nutrients out of their food as a gut fermenter like those ruminants. This has to do with the structure of the overall digestive tract. Animals that ferment in their stomach are able to then pass those digested materials straight into the small intestine, which is the primary site of absorption. The cecum comes after the small intestine, which means that the digested nutrients are going into the large intestine, which is able to absorb some nutrients, but not nearly as many as the small intestine. To get around this, some cecum fermenters actually use a strategy called coprophagy. This is where they eat their own feces. And before you get totally grossed out, there are actually two types of droppings produced by these animals. Okay, two examples of animals that use coprophagy are actually rabbits and chickens. So for rabbits, they will eat their food and digest it the first time. Okay, that food is fermented in the cecum and then passed through the large intestines, and a green pellet is deposited. The animal will then re-ingest that green pellet and break it down and digest the rest of those nutrients. Okay, the second time around, that pellet will come out brown and it will be completely undigestible materials. Okay, chickens do something very similar. They have two ceca where they ferment their food. Okay, they will excrete some material, re-ingest and redigest to get the extra nutrients after that cecum fermentation. This video segment has covered some of the adaptations of digestive systems that allow animals to digest varying diets.